I'm Ken MacLeod. I'm a science fiction writer. I live near Edinburgh and I've written 12 novels in the past 12 or 13 years or so. Actually, what inspired me to become a science fiction writer, I guess, was reading science fiction. Like many people, I came across it in my early teens, quite by chance, although I had read science fiction before as boys' adventures and so forth. But the first time I came across a book that was, as it were, presented as science fiction was Rocket to Limbo by Alan E. Nourse, who wrote many books, mainly for young people, and it was in the junior library in Greenock, where I grew up. And once I'd read that book, I was completely hooked, and I guess for an embarrassingly long number of years, actually, the next 10 years or so, I probably didn't voluntarily read any fiction other than science fiction. Amazingly, this got me as far as first year English in university. However, I never actually thought of myself as potentially a writer, unlike my friend Ian Banks, who had formed the ambition to be a writer at some astonishing age and set out persistently to do it. No, what SF inspired me to do was to want to be a scientist. However, I wasn't terribly good at maths, so I ended up with the least mathematical degree available, a zoology degree, went off and did research in biomechanics, and every so often I would make some really amateurish attempt to write a story, and I would proudly send it off to whatever magazine was publishing SF at that time in the UK, and gradually collected a few rejection slips. The stories were all pretty dire. I think the what's the opposite of zenith? The nadir of this attempt to go into science fiction by the normal route of writing short stories and having them published in magazines was when I sent a story to Interzone, the main British science fiction magazine, in the early 90s, and the rejection slip kindly suggested that I try submitting my stories to local fanzines. So I submitted my story to a local fanzine, New Dawn Fades, many of whose contributors have gone on to greater things, and they rejected it. So after that, there was nothing for it but to write a novel. More seriously, I had ideas for novels for quite a number of years, for science fiction novels, plenty of ideas. I'm basically just an interested layperson for almost all areas of science, including computers, to be honest. I read New Scientist cover to cover, more or less, every week. I follow science websites and click on any science-related links in my Twitter feed and this kind of thing. That's how I keep up to date as much as I can with science and technology developments. I've also, if I could add, I've done a little bit of work in the area of public engagement with science through my residency in 2009 at the Genomics Forum at Edinburgh University. That's a small part of a network of sociological institutions of social scientists who study natural scientists at work, as it were. I had to keep biting my tongue when I first started off at the Genomics Forum, because I kept saying things like social scientists and actual scientists. No. Science fiction is kind of unique in terms of genre and in terms of mainstream fiction in relation to its nationality, in that it's a very consciously international, or at least international in the English-speaking world sense. I think that science fiction as a genre has offered Scottish writers the opportunity to write for an international audience and become somewhat more cosmopolitan than they otherwise might be. Not that that's necessarily, a wonderful selling point, as we see from the crime genre having a very Scottish-focused and local approach works very well in appealing to an international audience.